Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Green Arrow FPL podcast from Fantasy Football Hub with Game Week 1 in the books and Game Week 2 on the horizon. My name is Fergi, and life is good. Rich Clarke. I am here with the brilliant Rich Clarke. Rich, how are you? And how was your Game Week 1?
I'm fine, mate. I'm good. Yeah, I really enjoyed the first week of the season. I'm feeling good. I'm fairly happy with my team and my opening score. I thought it was solid. Nothing to panic about. But you know, in the shadows of greatness, to be honest, I'm sure we'll talk about your team at great length in this review and your chip strategy. But I mean, I played it pretty template. I played it pretty safe out the gate. I didn't want to have a bad game week 1, and I think I got 60 points and stuck in around 2.8 million at that level. So I'm quite happy with that. The ranks don't really matter at this stage of the season, although I'm sure you'll beg to differ when we come to your team. I felt it was there's several positives in the selections that I made. I thought the Tottenham result was great against Burnley, and the double Spurs defence gave a really solid start, along with the Sanchez clean sheet. Obviously, it feels great and a little bit smug having Reinders in the team as the 5.5 choice. And although it was late, Salah did get a return and a bonus point, so some captaincy points in that first fixture. A little bit worried about Chelsea and Villa's lackluster performances, both finishing goalless, but they both have good fixtures this week, so very happy to give those Villa and Chelsea players another game. I'm happy with 60, and it feels like a easy roll week for me. What do you think? It's okay, and it's 60.
I think you've had a solid start, mate. I think the Reinders pick kind of helped turn your week from an average week into a good week. I think I think you've gone off probably the best you could have hoped for. I think we were talking about if we'd have gone into like game week 3, 4, or 5 at 6 million, 7 million, but it doesn't look like you're going to be sort of anywhere near there, given already in the top 3, really good team, likely going to roll, all chips in hand. Like I say, it's easy for those of us who bench boosted to kind of go, but look, but those on different strategy, which you are, and I think it's brilliant. They're on different strategies. I think it's going to be absolutely fascinating to see how the season plays out now. But from your strategy and how you played it, I don't think you could have hoped for much more. So, well done, mate. Rock solid, and I look forward to the battle ahead. It's going to be good.
Let's move on to you.
No. Let's just leave it, mate. You. Let's just leave it. Let's leave it. Move on to the thing. No, I had a fantastic week. I probably had the most exciting week I've maybe ever had an FPL, but not far off. Just in terms of declaring a very rogue and probably brave strategy, but it kind of manifested itself exactly how I thought it might, in terms of I thought that Salah would score, get a return. He did, but he was largely nullified by my trio of Wirtz, Gakpo, and Ekitike, as I thought it might. And the bench boost worked out well. I think I had 29 points on the bench boost. I would have started Sells over Sanchez, which I did. But a bench boost of Sanchez. I had Aït-Nouri in my team, which I think, Rich, you were sat next to me on Friday when we had the news on Gvardiol, and I was on the fence with Aït-Nouri, and I said, "That's it, nailed on. Now I'm going to start. I'm going to play Aït-Nouri." So a 9-point unexpected DEFCON for Aït-Nouri, which was great. Reinders was on my bench boost. There was no way I was going to bench any of those other 7 attackers there. And the only letdown was De Cooper, who lost his clean sheet in the 95th minute, 96th minute. Otherwise, it would have been a 33-pointer. So, 98k bouncing. I probably had a little bit of luck in terms of picking Kudus and Reinders, who could have easily been, Anderson or Marlon or, someone of that ilk. But, the 50-50 generally, haven't gone my way in the last few years. So I'm really happy with that. And the only massive letdown really, was my captain Wirtz. I went for Wirtz because I really liked what I saw in the in the match last week against
Community Shield
Palace
game,
from
yeah.
him,
Yeah.
and both from
Yeah.
Verts, but also from Salah in terms of opposing him. But it was that man Akatike stole the show again. And if Isak doesn't sign for Liverpool in the next few weeks, I think Akatike is going to be in everyone's team because he looks like an absolute baller. And again, really smart finish again, really good all-round performance, and hoping for more of the same. So it was part of a grander strategy as well in terms of going aggressive, over the opening 2, 3, 4 game weeks. But I did say last week as well that it was about giving me options going, into this week. I've got options whether to free hit this week, which was my original plan. Got options to just play out my team, or even wildcards, because I do think there's a very, very viable game week 2 wildcard strategy, which I'll touch on a little bit later. Which is super exciting. And again, it's because we've never been in this position before where we're looking at playing all these chips early doors. But if you play your wildcard and free hit in a certain way in these opening couple of weeks, you basically get 5 sets of home games in 6 game weeks, which is absolutely crazy. So yeah, super, super excited, for a good start. I think more important, or as importantly anyway, I feel my team is set up really well as well. But like I said at the start, I absolutely mean it. The fact that I'm up against the maestro in Rich playing a traditional, sensible FPL game and getting off to a good start against my more sort of, maverick, new look sort of way with these new chips is going to be incredibly exciting for us, incredibly exciting for the pod moving forward. And every week we're going to be looking at things a different way now, which is super exciting. So
excellent.
I won't
well,
talk
good
about
luck. I think
anymore.
you've done really well. A lot of the community have got behind you on this, and indeed, followed your lead to an extent. So you've got a few benching dilemmas, I'm sure, to come,
Absolutely
given the
have.
spread of players coming forward. But I'm sure you'll manage those, and leaving a few points on your bench is no bad thing these days. So good luck with it, and keep going. Have you got the minerals to keep going? Let's see.
We will see. Before we move on to the coming game week, we've dusted off, and not only have we dusted off the Spaff-O-Meter, we've given it a lick of paint as well. So first chip used of the season already, as we know for myself, in game week 1. If we're able to have a look at the new look Spaff-O-Meter, maybe we can get, well, I'm not sure a vote is needed, Rich. I'm able to ask you, I can't think of a more overwhelming one.
Ian McLaughlin in the chat, even before we went on air, said, do we need to even debate in the chat whether Fergie has smashed it this week? I think we've got to give you a fireball straight out the gate. It's just almost a double fireball, mate. 29 points on a bench press. You take that in a double game week. You'd run down the road with that in a double game week. You've done it in a single game week.
I have been running down the road, mate. I have been running down the road with my Welsh flag. Come on, baby.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, totally and utterly smashed it in the first week. But so yeah, well done. I don't think anybody in the chat would argue that it's a met or that you spaffed it, and it set you up really nicely. You're not at a disadvantage, really, looking at the players. The number of players that you have are the ones that everybody has been buying this week. So you've got them in your team already. You might want to come off 1 or 2 of them because you've now got a very deep bench and a lot of funds on that bench. But you can use a chip to reverse that, in coming weeks, and I'm sure you'll talk about that. But yeah, smashed it for me all the way.
Thank you, mate. I made a transfer as well. Spoiler alert. I made a transfer on Sunday night, which I will touch on in a bit as part of the sort of wider strategy around this early aggressive approach. I'm not sure it's going to come to fruition. It probably maybe was a bit knee-jerk, but I'm in knee-jerk modes this year, mate, and I'm going for it. So we'll touch on that in a bit. Just to say hello to people in the chat before we move on. FPL Gaza is in, as is Ross. Ross had a really good start to the season. Superb stuff. Ian McLaughlin is in. Todd Kerska, he said he spaffed the bench boost for a 9-pointer. That's not too bad, Todd. I mean, if you are up against Devrab, Karasteve, and Gui benches in game week 2 or a future game week, then I think 9 points would be all right. I must have a username is in Adam Carey. Di Thomas is in. He said the wife's team similar with free hit this week. He asks if we should captain Saka. We'll definitely touch on the captaincy later. Adam is in. Claire FPL, who I met on Friday evening at Fest. Great to see you, Claire. Dave Hannigan is in. John Acornley. FPL Springbok says violins ready. We need some violin moments. So please, when Scott tweets out in the week violin moments, send them in. Let us all laugh at you. Belfast Bunch is in. Daniel Roberts, Andrew Savage, N. Lopes Copes, Paul Jones, Cedric Levy, Gareth Bennett, my golf coach, is in, as is Maro and Jack from the Rock Shop. Great to have you with us, guys. It's my local where I go for a coffee and chat FPL. Great to have you all with us. Firstly, before we move on, do you want your FPL team rated by AI for free and personalized transfer recommendations given to you each and every game week? If you do, just click the top link in the description below and join the 700,000. Yeah, you heard that right. 700,000 now other Fantasy Football Hub members all getting ahead of the curve against their rivals. Okay, Rich, game week 1 is done. It's cooked. It's in the books. We are looking ahead now to the next, 3 or 4 game weeks, the lie of the land. How do you see the world of FPL over the coming weeks?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting. The teams that appear to sort of make their way to the top of the ticker really do vary according to the number of weeks that you look through with the lens. I hadn't really taken a 4-week lens from game week 2, but you'll see all of a sudden we're talking about Fulham, at the top of the ticker, 3 home games in the next 4, and some of the arguably lower ranked teams like Burnley, Bournemouth, Sunderland, Palace. Not that Palace are a bad team, but these are not what you'd call top 6 teams here that are appearing at the top of the ticker. So this view takes us into sort of mid to late September, because there's a big international break coming at the end of August, early September, and by the time we get to the end of game week 5, I think we'll be talking about a month's time. I think, isn't it? It's really just the next calendar month. Yep. So a lot of football to be played, some international football to be played in between. But could this now be the time for Joachim Andersen to come off our benches or come into our sides and start getting those DEFCON points that he's been threatening to get? Bournemouth look a really good bet now. And I think if you took a slightly longer view of their fixtures now, they've got that opening game out of the way, which they didn't do badly in, to Liverpool. They look a really good bet to the likes of Semenyo, Evan Nielsen. I'd probably steer clear of their defence for a while, having shipped 4, and they probably need a little bit of time. But yeah, Bournemouth attackers look really good. Sunderland, what a team they were out of the gate, at home. Still got very good fixtures and some real bargains. We couldn't even find images of them to put on our graphics this week because they're so unknown. But there's certainly some options there in Sunderland in the budget position. So you wouldn't think that we were naming those teams, but then if you look down the bottom, all of a sudden, we're all loading up on Spurs for the first game week. They now fall to the bottom and they're ranked 20th over the next 4. I don't think it's anything too much to worry about. So it'll be heavily weighted towards the City fixture at the weekend, and that once we get beyond them, they'll fly back up the ticker again. And Chelsea as well, right down the bottom again themselves. But I think that's mainly because both Spurs and Chelsea now have 3 away games in the next 4. And I think you're going to touch on this with your wildcard strategy, because there are quite a lot of teams that have either 3 home games in the next 4 or 3 away games in the next 4, and the pattern swings around a bit. So if we are planning transfers, then certainly an emphasis on homies, teams that are playing at home a lot, is going to be very useful. So yeah, I thought it was an interesting lens, and I've been really looking at longer term lenses for the first week. So to see that interim one was quite revealing.
What's your in terms of the longer term lens you mentioned, Rich, and obviously you say yourself you played a reasonably sort of a template team. What is your thinking now on how you and more template teams should be approaching the next 6, 7, 8 game weeks, really, in terms of focus, but also in terms of chips as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you've got off to a reasonable start, then staying patient would be the obvious thing to do. You know, while other people might be knee-jerking a bit and panicking and getting a chip out or taking a hit to bring the strongest players in each week, I would encourage you to be patient with the picks you've originally made and stick with that early horizon. Just bank a few transfers, especially while the transfer market is as volatile as it is. If you get an opportunity to bank a few transfers in weeks 2 and 3, go into the international break still looking okay, and then make an assessment based on the first three game weeks, and then make your first couple of transfers during the international break. You possibly will have to due to an injury at that time or a suspension or something like that. But I would say probably there's nothing wrong with playing a bit boring and playing a bit safe during that time. I mean, personally, I'm looking at maybe a free hit in 6, maybe a bench boost in 8, maybe a wild card in 13, but it's very loose, and I'll probably have to wild card when I need to. I last year I think people were at this stage were saying, "Oh, I think I like the look of game week 6 for a wild card. It fits with my strategy." And remember what happened to us? We both wild carded in game week 6, and we got about 30 points, didn't we?
It was the worst. It was the
It was the worst
we
ever
went from
week to
here
wild
to
card.
here, and then
Yeah.
moved up again, didn't we? It was
Yeah,
dreadful.
and there was a big fixture swing for Arsenal and City, and they played like Leicester and Southampton, and they both flopped completely.
They did.
So I think game week 6 is too far away, and I'm quite glad you haven't got it on the fixture chart. But because of that, we can start to think about that as it comes onto the horizon.
What are your thoughts, Rich, on on the alternative play, which is the more aggressive kind of strategy in terms of what are your thoughts of where you're sat now, I suppose, against that? Does it matter? I suppose is one. In 3 or 4 game weeks, if I and others continue playing aggressively and we shoot out of the blocks and you end up, and I'm maybe being a bit optimistic here, say 40, 50 points ahead of you in 4, in 4 or 5 weeks. Does that concern you at all, or are you just going to be happily play your game and think you'll claw it back easily enough over the rest of the season?
Not if those people have got 5 chips left and I've got 8, it's not going to really concern me.
Okay.
But what I'm really concerned with is how is my own team doing, and how is my own team looking in that time? If I'm getting 30 points and no one's doing anything, and I'm being too pedestrian, then that would cause me to change it around a little bit. But no, I'm not that worried about not having the points on the board. I think it's fine to go aggressive. Obviously, it's been a great start, and last week was a good week to bench boost. It was a high-scoring opening game week, so you want to be playing a chip like a free hit or a bench boost in a high-scoring week. But if we get a low-scoring week, it's nobody's fault. It's just a low-scoring week, isn't it? Where the average comes down to about 35 or something instead of 55, 60. That's a different week, and if you're playing chips, then you're a bit exposed, and you could come away thinking you've wasted it. So you really want to look at a week where there's some big supremacy games. There's the top teams are playing the whipping boys. We don't even know who the whipping boys really are, do we yet? Because Leeds and Sunderland have both had good wins, and exactly. So we don't know who the whipping boys are. Yeah, exactly. So we need a few more weeks of information before we start really setting up for those big free hits. That's why I'm surprised to see so many free hits this week, because we've got 1 week worth of information and really only one targetable game, I would say, because Tottenham don't look a pushover, and Leeds don't look a pushover either, and that might be what's put you off free hitting, because they don't look like they're nailed on to get thrashed. So
No, that's right.
So it's a bit early to be playing the powerful chips, in my view.
We'll touch on that in a bit, because I'm not saying I disagree, but I do think there is a very viable, alternative strategy or two, which we'll touch on. But firstly, let's just have a look at the players, which are on everyone's lips this week. Obviously, we called them knee-jerkers. Potentially, whether they are or not, again is debatable. But Rich, you've got a few players here, who have got off to an absolute flyer, and just interested in your thoughts on on whether you're thinking of
Yeah.
bringing them in, bringing any of them in or not? Or
Yeah, I mean it's very easy. Both of these, all of the guys on this chart, and we could have had more, but all of the guys here have got at least 2 returns last week, possibly more. I think Richarlison and Semenyo and Wood all scored twice. Ekatike and Reinders both got a goal and assist each. It's easy, isn't it? It's nice and smug if you've got Reinders in your team, and he was the obvious bargain pick, great enabler at 5.5 mil. I think he's risen to 5.6 now. But if you haven't got him, the temptation to lose somebody who didn't do much, a Rogers or a Jorginho or somebody like that, who you can come down off to get him in. The temptation is obviously there because most of us have probably seen enough to say, yeah, we've got to get this guy in. And so there's nothing wrong with using a free transfer to bring him in this week. And I think he is the most popular transfer in. I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but it's something like 300,000 or 400,000 people have already bought him in already. And I can understand that. So if he continues to appear and if he continues to perform for City in that number 10 type role here, he will inevitably be 40-50% owned in a couple of weeks.
price as well, mate. But he rose in price, which is tough for people. I think he rose on the, I want to say, the Sunday night before even the Everton Leeds game had played out.
Yeah.
So if you are on a 5.5, I like someone like Marlon, or maybe Anderson or someone of that ilk who you're not quite happy with, to get to him, you have to move really quickly, or now you have to take out a more expensive player, potentially look for a hit. So I think there were 3 rise winner on Sunday night, which means very aggressive transfers being made, which makes the game all that harder, because where you want to show patience, it's very hard to show patience when all of a sudden your player gets out of reach in a few hours.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people put a great emphasis on building team value in the early part of the season. I've never been one to particularly worry too much about that. But what you don't really want is player that's plummeting in value, because you're getting a kind of double whammy when you lose a 0.1. So if you remember, and Kunku from last season, rapidly dropped to 6.3, 6.2. And for people who were patient, they just had to wear that loss. I think similar, in a couple of weeks' time, we could see some very popular players like João Pedro and maybe that Mark Guiu chap. He might start falling. So it's guarding against price falls that might cause people to make earlier transfers than necessarily missing out on a rise. So yeah, we've got to talk about them. I mean, Ekatike, he was your hero, wasn't he, in the Liverpool game? The longer the Isak bad behaviour goes on, the more Newcastle stand up to him, the better he looks as a prospect. But I would seriously probably just wait until the end of August before bringing him in. You've got Newcastle and then Arsenal, 2 tough fixtures. Go into the international break. If they haven't brought in another striker, he looks like a great opportunity, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. And he's definitely a hold, but I'm not sure he's a buy, as you say, because I think that game on Monday night at St. James's is going to be a wildly emotional game. Newcastle are going to be so bang up for that. I cannot wait to watch that game Monday night. It's going to be superb. But I think it was 3-3 last year. I'm hoping it's not 3-3 this year. I'm hoping it's more of a real hard scrap, sort of like a 1-1 or even a Newcastle win. Personally, just as a non-Salah owner, obviously still wanted to stay quiet. But the fact he's home to Arsenal again the following week, I think that Liverpool players are potentially a hold, but I wouldn't be buying now, especially as I think, having watched the Community Shield and watched the game last week against Bournemouth, that the points are just going to be spread. I think their whole attack has changed. The whole sort of dynamic has changed, haven't it? And everyone will get points. So as long as you've got one of them or 1 or 2 of them, because I don't think. Well, it'd be interesting on the on the captaincy chat on whether you think that Salah maybe is the best captain this week, but it feels like on the face of it, there's going to be a real spread of captains, because there are, I think, 5 or 6 really viable options this week. A couple of other players who performed well. Chris Wood, as we know, we continue to overlook Chris Wood.
My favourite.
Your favourite player. And Richarlison, I mean, a couple of goals from him which are absolutely fantastic. What are your thoughts on Richarlison moving forward? I just don't know. I can maybe see him starting this coming week and then being eased out for Solanke, but I'm just not sure.
Well, he's very streaky. and he's a confidence player, isn't he? When his confidence gets up and he starts strutting around like a peacock, he really does. He really is one to watch out for. He had a little peak for Everton, didn't he, when he kept them up a couple of years back? And I just think he should start. I mean, I think that Frank should start him while he is in this hot form and this confident form. Solanke's clearly not 100%, and so for the time being, I think he should go with Richarlison over Solanke. Whether or not that will continue or he'll play them both together. They, interestingly enough, I don't know if you caught this, but he was being thrown in as bait for Eze, wasn't he, late last night in that last ditch attempt to bring Eze in. But yeah, to me that suggests that they're not that worried about letting him go. But who knows?
I don't know how much of that is sort of it could be media talk. He's Fergi Richarlison because I want it. He's the exact sort of player I would want on my team, and not against. That makes sense. He's like, I just feel against Man City on the weekend, it's going to be such a tough game. We're not going to see much of the ball, but you really need people to stand up and fight. And if there's one person, probably in the league, in the top 3 or 5 players in the league, you'd want on your team in that situation, it's Richarlison, because he just tries so hard. He chases back, he gets stuck in. He stands up in people's faces. He's not pushed around, and I really like him. And the fact that those 2 finishes he did on the weekend were absolutely superb.
Goal of the month sewn up.
They were brilliant. So I really I hope he stays, and I hope he starts, because the way that Spurs played last week with all these crosses swinging into the box, the old sort of Brentford way, I think they're going to suit Richarlison and Solanke down to the ground. Sadly, they won't be being swung in by Eze, which is a different matter. But
no.
Today we have it. And last one on here, Antoine Semenyo. I mean, again, what a performance, what a player, Rich. And he scored 2 goals, didn't we, in Gameweek 38? And he scored 2 games again in Gameweek 1.
I don't think I ever got to say, I brought him in as my transfer on Gameweek 38. I had 2 free transfers last day of the season. I was so obsessed with what Saka was doing, I left him on my bench and missed out on his 16 points there.
Brought Semenyo in and left him on your bench, mate.
Yeah, so he scored 4 goals in 2 games.
2 games, yeah. Well, spoiler alert, I brought him into my team on Sunday night. I don't know whether it's a clap or not, Rich, because it was Kneejerk, but I'll give you the reason why I brought him in on Sunday night is because in the opening week, 0.1 either way, especially when if you're on a free hit or on a wild card, not that 0.1 million is the same as 500,000, right? Because you just can't get to the player, can you? And I was very sure, I was sort of 80 or 90% sure at that point on Sunday night that I was probably going to free hit and maybe even wildcard. I'll touch on these strategies next. So I thought, I'm definitely free hitting on wildcarding. I'll bring him in because it saves me the 0.5 this week. And I took out Florian Wirtz, which may sound, again, a bit mad, but I just feel it's just aggressive play, and we'll see how it pans out. I've kept and Akatike, so
you had three Liverpool anyway, didn't you? So you could afford to maybe just offload some of that risk a little bit with the 2 games ahead. I think it's a sensible move. I mean, you also give yourself money in the bank for another transfer in Game Week 3 if you want to, and as you say, you still can free hit if you want. So yeah, and I mean, Semenyo's great pick for next few weeks.
I think so. I'm even thinking of captaining him this week as well. I don't know whether I'll actually be brave enough, but another player or 2 who I thought were fantastic on the weekend. Maybe not bringing in this week, but definitely next week. I thought Cunha and Mbeumo for United were absolute lightning against Arsenal, and how Cunha didn't. I think he had 4 shots, 3 on target. That David Raya save was absolutely magnificent, where he just got a fingertip on it, tipped it around the post. And I think that next week they're going to be, super important. But because they didn't return, they probably haven't got the the amplification they probably deserve for their performances, but both of them were exceptional, and they look really, really good moving forward. Let's have a look at some predicted points ahead of the next 4 game weeks. Top of the shop, unsurprisingly, Mo Salah is still top with 31. Haaland, we haven't mentioned yet, actually. Haaland, 2 goals, unnoticed, really. I thought he looked two
Good, didn't he?
really good finishes. He looked very, very sharp. Yeah, were you impressed with him, Rich?
I was, yeah. I mean, people who've not, I would say it was sort of was like 80-20 Salah Haaland split,
I think
amongst the
so.
engaged community. But if you look at your mini league, all the guys at the top of your mini league are the Haaland
Haaland,
captainers,
absolutely.
so they're 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 looking good, City out the gate, and I think Haaland's going to be back to his golden boot winning form.
I think so, especially with someone like Reinders in behind him. When Reinders made that run for the third goal, there's not many people who I thought as he was making that run. Sorry, was it the third goal or the fourth goal? Third goal. And you could see Haaland steaming in behind him. I thought if Reinders can just see him at the corner of his eye now and just pull it back, and he did. But it was the way, there's not many players I don't think can actually do that. I think Reinders is going to be absolute gold for Haaland, and yeah, that finish from Haaland was special, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Palmer is still quite high up. Disappointing last week, but a couple of good fixtures ahead, especially West Ham away this weekend. Saka, if I was free hitting, if I am free hitting, Saka would probably be in the team, though it was revealed this morning by Arteta in some kind of quick fire interview that Gyökeres may actually be, well, he's his favourite. No, I think he was asked who's the best penalty taker at Arsenal, and he answered immediately Gyökeres, which is quite interesting for Saka owners. Watkins is up there. Obviously, again, disappointed last week. No shots in the first half at all for Aston Villa against Newcastle, which gave me hope. Facing.
Yeah, I didn't see any of that game. I was away on a golf weekend last week, and I think the Villa fixture was the Saturday lunchtime game. Was it on
the early
TV?
game, yeah.
I didn't see it, but I was looking at the stats, and it looked like they put up nothing in that game. It didn't do anything.
Well, in the
But
first
that
half,
was
they
just a
didn't have a shot.
statistical view. Yeah.
Yeah, and then in the second half, obviously Konza had the red card, so they didn't do much there either. But yeah, I'm not sure whether it was Villa were just completely blunt or Newcastle just excellent. But hopefully for me with no Salah, it was just Newcastle being excellent, and that and that midfield three for for Newcastle.
I mean, Watkins got a very good record against Brentford, hasn't he? So I think
definitely hold this week.
Again, you just hold and give him another game and see how we go. And the reason I got him in was at the price point, so you can go, you can go anywhere off him quite easily. So not worried about it. I think Villa will pick themselves up, but they just looked a bit sluggish out the gate, didn't they? That's all.
Mateta on 23 points, Bruno 23. I mean, again, just watching the game, Bruno seemed withdrawn, and it looks like the introduction now of Cunha and Buemo and obviously Sesko. I think like even when United sort of camp around the opposition box, Bruno is normally right on the edge in the D that are making runs in. He was far back, mate. He was like 10, 15 yards off the pace there. So
did he get DEFCONs last week?
No,
Bruno?
I think he was one short.
One off it. Okay.
Short. So he'll definitely get DEFCONs, but 9 million for that, and and the old penalty maybe isn't the best. And especially I saw from Cunha, and well, I think they had 6 shots, 5 shots on target between them. Bruno had none. They look good. Gakpo, Semenyo on 22, Vert, Ekitike on 22. Wood, Eze, obviously there, his Palace stats. It'll be interesting to see how he, where he fits in at Arsenal, and then a few more. But some interesting ones there. Another player who came on, Rich, who took his goal incredibly well. Cherky took it. I mean, he showed a couple of touches. I don't know if you saw.
I did see
the
that
highlights. He looked very, very, very sharp as well. Yeah. So yeah, they're the points. And let's just have a chat now, really, about the alternative FPL strategy, which there are a couple. So free hit in game week 2. So the kind of strategy I talked about last week was bench boost in game week 1. All the players in game week 1 play at home again in game week 3, and you could play a free hit in game week 2 in between. Now, that was my plan. I still think it's very viable depending on what team you've got. But looking at my team, which we'll look at a bit later, I've got a very strong team now going into game week 2, because obviously a lot of my players performed in game week 1, right? So I've got players like Nori, I've got Reinders, I've got Watkins, still got obviously Palmer and João Pedro, I've got West Ham. So I've got Nori, did I mention him? I can't remember who but I mentioned.
All right, all right.
No. I've actually got a benching dilemma.
You have, yeah.
Which then doesn't make sense for a free hit. So I ran through, and if we can just have a look now at the free hit team, which looks strong, and you can add a lot of players into this as well. I ran through my predicted points on Fantasy Football Hub for my current 11, and I ran through the predicted points for the best free hit team, and there was only a 3-point difference. So both in terms of on the eye vibes, Grass FC, and in terms of the analytics, I don't think there's too much in it.
And you got that? Can you put it up on the screen?
Yeah, we'll get that on the screen now. That free hit team for game week 2, but it's got Raya in goal, in goals, however you say it in your part of the UK. We've then got Gabriel, so double Arsenal at the back and double Palace at the back. Munoz and Rich is both playing home to Forest, which looks a good fixture. Though I would say that I thought Forest looked absolutely fantastic last week. Such a slick attack. Saka in as the captain, and then Palmer treble up on Bournemouth attack.
That is a lot of Bournemouth.
Semenyo, Tavernier, and Evan Nielsen. Tavernier nearly scored last week, but I definitely like the picks of Semenyo and Evan Nielsen in particular. I think they could have an absolute field day this week. Yeah. And then Haaland and Mateta. I mean, that's a strong old team there, and obviously
it is, but it seems to have gone. I mean, it's gone for basically 3 triple ups. Yeah, Palmer and Haaland.
It's targeting the fixtures, going all in on these teams winning 2-0 or whatever it is, isn't it? But
I mean, can I critique it?
Absolutely.
I think I would definitely have Gyökeres on there over Raya. I wouldn't waste an Arsenal spot on the keeper because of the penalties situation that we think Gyökeres is going to be on pens. So I might even think about passing the armband to Gyökeres over Saka because part of Saka's appeal is the pens, and so now there's jeopardy over whether he's got them or not. I'm not sure he's worth 10 mil. And he doesn't seem to be as essential a target to be switching to, but I'd have him on a free hit, and I'd have Gyökeres and I'd have Gabriel. Those would be my 3 Arsenal. I would have Munoz, but I wouldn't double up on Palace defense, not against Forest, given the start they have made. So those would just be observations that I would have. I would have 8 Nori in there as well over.
Yes, good show.
Over Reinders. Those were just observations that I made, but they are more sort of subjective, early form,
and it's 1 week
big
punt.
Teams.
This is the
correct.
Thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a 1 week punt, but if you can afford it, you can maybe play a 3-5-2 or a 4-4-2 and afford those players that I've just mentioned. So that would just be my view. I think Palace with Eze will obviously not play. I think he might play tonight for the conference game
this evening.
But he won't be in the team at the weekend. The night might disrupt them slightly. So I think I probably might go for a 3-5-2 or a 4-4-2 and lose Mateta this week v Forest. So yeah, that's just what I'd do. But other than that, I really like it. I think it's a good week. It's a free hit, but maybe not a week where you'll get 15 plus gain on the field. I think you might be looking at more like 7 or 8 points of gain. If that makes sense.
And also on this, you are taking out players who are primed for a good week. Watkins, as an example, we've just said away to Brentford. I know he blanked last week, but he's looked lightning in pre-season. He's looked very, very good. And there's other players in there as well. Reinders isn't in this in this team. There's no Liverpool attack either. So I think there were a couple of things for me why I'm now not free hitting. The main one was actually how Arsenal and Leeds played out, because this was the one fixture this weekend where you go Saka, Gyökeres, and I don't know, maybe Rice or Martinelli or wherever, and just go boom. If you think Arsenal were going to beat Leeds 5-0, right? Which we maybe thought was a possibility a couple of weeks ago, or even a week ago, then I do think, you can imagine getting two attackers like Saka and Gyökeres with such low ownership at any point in the season, particularly right at the start. You can absolutely fly up the ranks. I didn't see enough from Arsenal, and whether that was because United were very good, which they were very good. I didn't see enough from Arsenal last week, and obviously the Leeds and Everton. Leeds 1-0 win, right? And I know Everton were poor, but I've gone from seeing that game as maybe a 4 or 5-0 to Arsenal now to maybe a 2-0 or something like that, rightly or wrongly, and like I say, anything can happen in any one game, but I just don't feel there's enough upside now playing every hit for me personally, but just because of my 11, it'd be different for different players in different positions with different teams, but that's why I'm not going to play it. I think the other player I would maybe chuck in there, just based on the eye test of what I saw last week. I thought that Cunha was just outstanding, and he's away to Fulham, which is not like the easiest game, but again, I get the feeling that by game week 3, and definitely a little bit on from that his ownership is going to skyrocket because he looked absolutely electric last week. There is an alternative strategy, Rich, where, and I was just looking at this, and again, it's never one which we would have thought about in any previous season because you save the chips for double game weeks, right? But obviously, we know this season is different. And if you haven't got off to the best start, if you want to supercharge your season from this moment on, I believe there is an alternative strategy going forward now, which is, the way the fixtures have fallen, is that if you played a wild card now in game week 2, there are teams. I'll use Bournemouth. Bournemouth is probably the most extreme example, right? But Bournemouth, they're home to Wolves in game week 2. They're home to Brighton in game week 4. They're home to Newcastle in game week 5. They're away to Leicester in game week 6. And they're home to Fulham in game week 7. Wow. Crazy. 4 home games in 5 there. And the away game, sorry, I said Leicester. I meant Leeds. I couldn't really see it, Leicester. Yeah. But they've got 4 home games in 5. And their away game is at Leeds. And that's because of the way the fixtures have fallen. Now, game week 3, you can free hit if you wanted to try and make the most of game week 3, or not. You can just sort of carry your team through. But I do think that this strategy, if you're not happy with your start, I mean, are you ever going to have a position apart from when the double game weeks, and even when they do fall double game weeks, you're not guaranteed to get these players playing all the time, right? Where you can have 4 home, and if you include the free hit, Rich, if you include the free hit in there, you get 5 sets of home players in 6 game weeks. Now, I'm not saying that home is everything, right? But it is. I personally believe it's quite important. I believe it's quite important, right? And especially when it comes to number of goals scored. So teams like Leicester, Man City, blah, 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 they generally score. I said Leicester again. It's because I'm reading it in the chat. That's twice I've said Leicester. Teams like Liverpool, teams like Spurs, teams like, Man City, high-scoring games, hammerings tend to come at home, right? That's where they generally come. I know results-wise, I think there's a 5% increase on home performance against away performance. But teams definitely score more goals at home than score away. So it doesn't matter if the team wins or loses, right? If Liverpool win 4-1 at home and win 2-1 away, the points are the same, but there's more FPL points on offer. And so that's why I think that this strategy is pretty unprecedented and is a real option for those who want to try and get off to a good start. Now, I know, Rich, the way you play, and, again, seasoned maestro, one of the best FPL managers of all time, you're probably going to look at this and think, it's not for me. However, there may be some managers who haven't got off to the start they want, and they want to get off to a faster start, and they want to change their fortunes early. Yeah. I'm not advising do this to anyone and everyone. That's not. I'm just doing it as another option.
It's going to give you a big block of home games across the next 2 months, and that But what I notice about this is a lot of the bigger teams are down the bottom of the ticker.
Yeah, that's fair point.
And your Liverpools, your Chelseas, City, these are the teams, and Spurs. Yeah. They've all started, reasonably well. Chelsea, a little bit slow, but they've got good fixtures, over the long run. And actually, if you just looked at the ticker here and you're setting up a wild card this week, you're going to be skewed towards the teams at the top of the ticker because you want to get off to a fast start, just like game week 1.
Yep.
And now you're investing in maybe a sluggish Villa. You're putting a lot of faith in Bournemouth to come good. Man United still have to play Chelsea and City and Liverpool in the next 6 weeks. Newcastle haven't got Isak. They're distracted by that Isak situation. Everton have done nothing so far and have a new stadium to christen. Brentford are relegation candidates. So I've just dealt with the top 6. I know I've put a negative spin on that, but I'm looking down
really
that list
good argument, mate.
and thinking
argument. It is.
I'm not that enamored with the top 6 teams on this ticker, even though they've got home games. There's just something I can see that's slightly wrong with that for me. And therefore, I would just say after 1 week of information, I'd rather wait for a fixture swing that involves it swinging my way with the top teams. And you don't want the whipping boys at the top of the ticker. You want them at the bottom of the ticker when you wildcard, so you can attack them. And at the moment, that just looks a bit skewed the other way.
So I think the way I'm looking at it, and it's not just a reaction to a good game week. I've been talking about this all preseason. I just feel that, and maybe it's my own personality and my own FPL, sort of manager style personality and risk sort of appetite is I want to get out in front, both from an enjoyment perspective, but also from I feel like I play better when I'm in front, and playing kind of aggressively. So I take your point, and they're absolutely valid point, especially for season experience central managers who know that you win a season over 38 game weeks and not over 6, right?
No.
But I do think it's an option there, and if we can just have a look at the wild cards now, there's a real mixture there, of these players we're talking about, or not. There is still, Salah in the wildcard team. There's a Palm in the wildcard team. So this is the Hub AI Game Week 2 wildcard team. But, it does target those Bournemouth players and Forest players especially. I think they're the 2 teams who I would be most excited about is Palace and Bournemouth. So it would be Dubravka and Sanchez, and it's got Munoz, Richards, Cucurella, Salah, Palmer, Semenyo, Gakpo, and I can't see the midfielder at Dewsbury Hall, and then Mateta, Evan Nielsen, and Wood. Forest, another team who've got good fixtures.
But that team hasn't actually applied the ticker strategy that you put up just now, has it?
It's looking over the next 5 game weeks, including including game week 3. Yeah, it does include the game week 3 fixtures. Okay, so it'll be 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Yeah.
So if you took game week 3 out, it would give you a different
look. Exactly that. Yeah. But I just think that I said this last week, and I'm gonna carry on saying it because I think it's true. I feel it's true. I feel this season, and whether it's just me and the way I'm playing, but traditional FPL play, is going to get people off to a reasonable start, and and some of them, like yourself, Rich, will definitely end up with a good finish. But I think for people like myself who struggle with the grind of the FPL season, I do think there's a very viable alternative here.
I think it's great. I think it's really good. And actually seeing what strategy wins out. I don't think anyone can say what strategy is going to win out at this stage. We've had 1 week of football,
absolutely,
and all of a sudden, we've got some bench boosters who've got big smiles on their faces, and actually that's all it is. Everyone else has still got their bench boost to come. They've still got a wild card they can use to set up for it, even though that might not be seen as optimal. It's like it's such a long way to go.
I'll be laughing on the other side of my face, Rich, won't I?
I mean, you're 98K. I think last year Adam from Above Average had a fantastic game week 2. And he got into the top 10K. 3 weeks later, he was 2 million. So the early rank doesn't matter, a jot. So really, I think fine, mate. If you instead of free hitting, if you want a wild card this week, and you want to bring in a bunch of Villa and Fulham players or whatever it is who's top at the ticker in the next week, you go for it, buddy.
You just said
I'll take that on.
Bench boosters are sat there with a big cheesy grin on their face, and game week 1, what was it? Game week 1 scores don't mean a jot. Come on, they do, Rich. I'm sorry. I'm going to argue on this one, probably all season, and it's not because it's not like I've just played all out for game week 1. I think there is a continued aggressive strategy you can take here, and like I say, who knows? Because the game is there's so much variance, there's so much luck, there's so much fortune, injuries, all this stuff. You never know, but I really think there is a different strategy this year, which we've never seen before, because the chips haven't been available to us, and we will see how it wins out. But it is exciting, mate, and buzzing for game week 2,
exactly,
and to take a 50-point lead over you come game.
Okay,
right, we've got a new feature, Rich against the machine, which is where Rich is going to take on our AI. To look at potentially underrated player on the AI and feel that he can pick out a player or two who's going to score more. So, Rich, who have you got for us this week? Who is being underlooked by the AI?
Yeah, the idea of this is really just not to always religiously follow the AI transfer recommendation. I think it does make very sensible transfer recommendations sometimes, but we don't always want to play that way, and sometimes it will undervalue the player from an expected points perspective. So I've been sort of scouring the tables and looking for value, or looking for slight differentials in where other people might not get sent. And I came up with 3 candidates, one of which was actually Richarlison, but he was this morning. I think you might have bumped his minutes up now.
We bumped him up to 60, I think, or 59.
Right.
Yeah.
He was on very low expected minutes, and therefore he was only expected to score 1.7 expected points this week. Yep. I mean, I would have picked him out the gate if he'd stayed like that, because I think he will start against City. However, I've actually gone for Gabriel Martinelli, who's expected to score, according to the Hub, 4.1 expected points against Leeds, which is really only, well, you can almost get there with a clean sheet and some DEFCON points, can't you? I think he's definitely up for at least one attacking return in that game. So I think for my first effort at this, I think he's quite well underpriced in terms of the expected points. They're quite tightly bunched, so you never get someone that's a couple of points off, but I think he's at least a point off, so he's stuck out. And if it wasn't going to be him, I would have gone for Ismail Assar of Palace against Notts Forest, because Forest is probably down on expected points because Forest are so good defensively, and it's a decent fixture. But with Eze gone and not featuring, I think you'll see Star stepping up and getting more of the ball, and so I liked him as well, and he's expected to score 4.8 points this week. But Martinelli is my pick overall. I think we'll try and track these to see if I work ahead or behind the
It's either you or the robot, Rich or the robot, Rich or the machine. Who's going to win?
We could treat it like a match play situation, like I go 1 up or something like that, or we just see if I'm up on overall points over the season. But yeah, this is really just one to say, let's play with the eye test, and let's play good old fashioned FPL against the algo. Martinelli.
Good stuff. Fergie is a punt for game week 2. Who did I pick? I think I picked Gakpo for game week 1, so I'm one out of 1 for the punts. For that, which I'm happy with. For game week 2, I've got mine a couple of players. There was a good shout in the chat just a second ago. FPL Freddy shouted that I did like. I want to say Truffet, but it's probably something like Trufair or some more
like
European
Hyacinth Bouquet, isn't it?
Exactly that. Adrien. It's probably Adrian Truffet. I'm calling Adrien Trufair. But yeah, I thought he looked really, really good against Liverpool. Very attacking, 4.5 million defender. If I was wildcarding or free hitting this week, I think Truffet would be in my team, so I like him. But my actual punt this week again, and it's not just vibes because his stats back up from last week, but like I say, lightning performance, 4 shots, 3 on target. How he didn't score, I don't know. And this was against Arsenal, but for these next 2 weeks, I think that Matheus Cunha, he'll definitely be coming into my team next week when they play home to Burnley. But he was super, super impressive. And I think Cunha, if you're looking for a punt for this week, I think he could do well. I think he's definitely coming into my team next week. I was just so impressed with him. I thought he was fantastic at Wolves. I just think with the players around in the link-up play, he's going to have with Bruno and Mbuemo and Sesko, and I just think he's a super, super exciting pick. And I think because he didn't return last week, he's going to be under
the radar
this week and going into next week. So I'm half hoping he keeps quiet this week, because at the moment I might even captain him next week, Rich. I hope to Burnley, because he looks electric. What a footballer! If he can just keep his cool, he is going to be a superstar for the season. So he is my pick. Any thoughts on Cunha, Rich?
Yeah, I like him. He scored some big points for me last season. I thought he was a superb player. I think he's United's best transfer of the summer. If he gets the service, I think he'll score 15, 20 goals this season. I don't know how Sesko's going to go yet. I haven't seen enough of him. He only came on as a sub, but I think all those guys have all got to learn to play together, haven't they? That would be my one reservation, is there's no need to rush in. But it's Burnley next week, isn't it? So, great opportunity.
Let's have a look at the best captain for this week, and this is not an easy one at all. It's probably the most widest spread captaincy I've seen in a long time, and it's it's because all certain things have happened in terms of the actual players and teams themselves, the teams they're playing against as well. If you go on Fantasy Football Hub, the vote reads Salah top at 28%, Haaland second at home to Spurs, 18%, Saka 15%, Palmer 13%, Watkins 9%, Semenyo 7%, and Gyökeres 4%. This was before we heard the Havertz news, I believe. So Gyökeres may have increased, but yeah, it's incredibly tight. If we look at predicted points again from Fantasy Football Hub, you go and check them out for yourself. Look how close it is, mate. Salah 7.2, Saka 7.2, Haaland 7.1. You've got Palmer 6.2, Gyökeres 6.1, Semenyo 6. And you can even Watkins, has got a superb record there. And there's a number of other players you could throw in the mix there. And if we're going to look at Rob T's projected goals and clean sheets as well. So if you don't follow at Rob T FPL, make sure you do follow him on Twitter. Absolutely superb account there. In terms of teams, he thinks Arsenal going to score 2.5 goals this week. So looking at Arsenal player, maybe worth it. Second, Man City comes second with 2.35 goals. Haaland obviously springs up there. Chelsea away to West Ham third, and then Bournemouth and Liverpool both with 1.9, pushing on 2 goals as well. So a real spread here, Rich. I'm really interested in your captaincy thoughts, both who your captain's going to be, but also objectively for those who are really stuck as well.
I think it is really tough. It's a good week to have a swing. So basically have a pick someone you have a gut feel for, pick a fixture you really like. I mean, Gyökeres is a good shout, actually. He didn't appear on the poll, but if he's going to get those pens, I would be looking at the fixture first, above anything. So I haven't got any Arsenal players. If I had an Arsenal player this week, I would probably captain them. So if I had owned Saka, owned Gyökeres, yes, I'd captain them this week in this fixture, regardless of the penalty situation. Whichever one I own, I would captain there. Would I bring them in and captain them? No, I don't feel strongly enough to bring them in, like sell Watkins or sell Palmer or something like that at this stage. But if I owned an Arsenal asset, I would go for the captaincy based on these predicted goals and these predicted clean sheets. So, Gabriel's not a bad shout to bring in if you've got, so let's say you owned, I don't know, Frimpong or something, and he's got an injury now. We haven't mentioned that, but, get a Frimpong to Gabriel's a lovely transfer this week if you've been unlucky enough to pick up that injury. Arsenal fixture definitely is targetable. However, there's a little bit of this kind of like don't want to spaff my captaincy on a Friday night with a four
Yeah,
day
there is that in there.
weekend. The first game is
Finishing with
Chelsea,
Liverpool.
Chelsea West Ham, and the last game is Newcastle Liverpool. If you blow your Palmer captaincy on Friday night, he does nothing. You've got a long wait to watch all the other prime assets banging in the goals. So I think I'm going to be going Salah because at least my game week will still be
Oh, really?
alive
You'll be going Salah?
on Monday night. Yeah, I think I got a good record
One-shot
against
Salah.
Newcastle. Yeah, I think I'm going to go Salah. Also, it helped me catch you up because you haven't got him.
It's all right, mate. Salah will assist Ekatike.
Palmer or Saka, really. Sorry, Palmer or Salah for me. And I just fancy, because Chelsea are not really firing, and Palmer hasn't really fired since the World Cup final. I think Salah just gets a nod, but it is close. I think Haaland and Saka are better captains than those two, but I don't own them, so I've just got to pick the best one I have.
Yeah, I'm really glad that there is spread, because I don't own whatever, kind of 4 or 5 of the top 6 captaincy options this week. I don't own Salah, don't own Haaland, don't own Saka, Gyökeres, any of these players. So I'm really glad that it's been spread. My 3 options are probably Palmer, but I do agree with you that I haven't seen enough of him yet to captain him away at West Ham. So that leaves my 2 options, I think, as Watkins away to Brentford. I think he could do well, but again, they were quite blunt last week. But I think the aggressive shout this week, I think I'm right in saying that no player has scored as many goals as this player in the last 2 playing game weeks. Semenyo home to Wolves.
Yeah. What about that?
I brought him in, and I feel that if I'm going to stay true to myself in terms of playing my own way, playing aggressively, and I'm not being different for different sake. There's just no outstanding captain in terms of the effective ownership across the board. I'd be surprised, maybe Salah because of his ownership, but I can't see.
Can you imagine if he smashed another 2 goals in, and you're captaining him pretty much on your own? You own him pretty much on your own. You'll be winning FPL, Fergie. You'll just be winning. You'll never be caught.
But I also think that there's enough, because I don't think there's many Salah and Haaland owners.
Yeah.
With Salah against Newcastle, again, I'm trying to think of this, risk management thing, right? Against Newcastle on Monday night, even though I won't own Salah, I will own very low owned Gakpo and Ekatike as well, right? So, they're going to be, especially Ekatike, he's playing much closer to goal than Salah is at present. So they have a good chance of being
2 assets. You've got to be favourite there, haven't you?
This is it. So no Haaland. I just have to ride. I just have to ride against that. Really, there's not much I can do there. And yeah, I've got good options. So I think going Semenyo. The only thing with Semenyo I don't like is he's not on penalties. So I don't think he's on set pieces. I might be wrong there, but I'm looking.
Who do we think is on penalties? Is it Christie's on penalties for Bournemouth?
Or I would have guessed Evan Nielsen. I would have guessed Evan Nielsen if he's on the pitch. I think he's a really good shout this week. If I was free hitting, I would definitely be on a double up with Semenyo and Evan Nielsen.
Maybe Christie's injured, isn't he? He was on them before Kluivert was on them, wasn't he?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. Oh, yes, he was before Kluivert. Yeah. So yeah, I just think there's not enough of any of the other players. There's no standout option who's going to really hurt me, because I feel I've got them covered. Even Haaland's ownership, is not too much to sort of hurt me. He is playing Spurs well, and Spurs beat Man City 4-0 away last week. You can say, right, yeah, but different manager. I get that, right? Thomas Frank is very likely going to play a 5-3-2, right? As well, like he do a PSG, and keep it nice and tight and try and scrape a draw or scrape a small win. But I just can't see, right or wrongly, as well as Man City played last week, I can't see Man City going in and put in 3, 4, 5 past Spurs. So I think it's going to be a hard game for Man City. So I think all evened up again. Look at my whole team, and I will have Nori and Reinders playing as well. Again, it sort of maybe can cancel out the Haaland there as well. I think I've got a free swing, as we say, on Semenyo. That if he doesn't bang, it's not the end of the world. But if he does bang, absolutely fly up the ranks. So it's that again, it's that risk management of the low downside with a potential huge upside. So that's my thinking anyway.
All right, buddy. I think that's a good. I think it's a good play. I think he's a really good pick. It's a really good transfer. And I wish you luck with that one. And the Monday night is really the game, isn't it? You know,
Monday night is going to be a crazy
really good
game to
games.
watch.
Really good games this weekend.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Before we look at our teams and our transfers, do you want your FPL team rated by AI for free? And personalized transfer recommendations given to you each and every game week. If you do, just click the top link in the description below and join the 700,000 other Fantasy Football Hub members, all getting ahead of the curve against their rivals. Okay, Rich, we've got your team now on screen. Do you want to talk us through your plans for this coming weekend?
Yeah, I think I'm probably going to hedge on the Burnley Sunderland fixture. I have Dubravka and Sanchez as goalkeeper options, but I think given West Ham's poor performance last week, I will put Sanchez in goal. I know the graphic says Dubravka, probably because of slightly higher predicted points, but I think I'll probably go play Estev but bench Dubravka. Anderson will come in and hopefully be a DEFCON monster against United at home for Fulham. And Murillo will hopefully get some DEFCON points away to Palace. I think he'll have a busy afternoon there. So that's the defence. It means benching both Tottenham assets. I'm not that wild about benching Pedro Porro. Wanted your thoughts on that. Happy to bench Van der Ven, but at the moment, Porro's first bench. Salah captain, Palmer. Wirtz gets another game, and I think people have been a bit too quick to write him off. Reinders, obviously last week's hero, and Morgan Rogers in midfield. So 5-man midfield, and Watkins and João Pedro get another chance up front to start their seasons off. So I don't mind the team. I'm not expecting it to be a brilliant week because we're in the away swing of a 2-home game first start. Obviously, people are free hitting to avoid that, all those away fixtures, and that's one of the benefits for free hitters. But I'm going to stick it out. And all these players will be at home again next week, and I am going to play at least one of the Burnley guys because Estev, I think, has got a good chance of a clean sheet and some DEFCON points. So I think I'm good for DEFCON this week, and I would be happy if I got a small green. But it's all about the captaincy. If you get the captaincy right, then I think you're going to get a small green. But I'm not expecting a big green off this team.
Interesting on Porro. I've got the same dilemma on Porro, and it was just confirmed in the chat. Gareth had just said they wouldn't have Porro have the upside as a wing back. So if Spurs do revert to a 5 at the back as expected, he's playing wide right. I did see a stat this morning that he had the most penalty box touches out of something like all players this week, like last week or something crazy. On set pieces, and did get a 15-pointer away at City last year. He got the goal and the clean sheets last year away at City.
I mean, it's going to hurt.
Not sure who
isn't it? Not playing.
I think, mate. I think I've got a bit more of a dilemma, but I prefer Porro over Anderson and Estev this week. Personally, I just think the upside is there for Porro.
You'd put Murillo on the bench out of those four, would you?
No, sorry. I would put either Estev or Anderson on the bench. I would probably play Murillo in your position, even though I think that the Palace are a very good side. I think Murillo is decent. I just, I know Estev at home to Sun. I thought Sunderland looked excellent last week. I could see Sunderland scoring personally. And Anderson, again, I can see United scoring. So I would personally play Porro over one of those.
Just literally treat the Burnley boys as fodder in their arguably best game of the season.
But are you looking at it just because it's their best game of the season? I mean they're in your team for a reason, right? And it's purely for the fact that they're £4 million and nothing, and they start. They're not in your team for any other reason at all, is it? They're
there to come off the bench and get you 2 points in the event of a goalkeeper being ill or absent, or one of your players not starting. But we were talking about there are still several people that are going ahead with a bench boost with these players. That they're highly owned. There will be something like 10% people might bench boost this week because they haven't got Mark Guiu. They've got a playing player instead. So you are up against it. And so playing them, not playing either of them, feels a little foolish when Porro is arguably going as the Tottenham's hardest game of the season. So I mean, you could spin it different ways, can't you?
Again, it's down to FPL management and personality in it. And I think mine, I would always look for the upside.
Yeah.
Where it sounds like you're more in the sort of hedgy mode there. Apparently, Eze's not playing this evening.
Right. Okay.
Interestingly, which
That makes
I've got to be
sense.
honest, I'm not surprised. I would be amazed he would have been allowed to play, given he's about to sign for 60 million or whatever it is. Maybe he's on his way to White Hart Lane, mate. Maybe he has a change of heart. I can't see it.
Exactly. Maybe it's not too late.
Your recommended transfer this week by Hub AI is to take out, interestingly, João Pedro for Jean-Philippe Mateta. It's seen enough of 70-minute Pedro, and it likes Mateta. We mentioned earlier that Palace's fixtures look really, really good for the foreseeable. So
that's a good pick. It's a good pick, and obviously they've now got two nice home games in the next 3. I don't think I'll be quite tempted to make the move, but I see the logic behind it because Pedro is not a 90-minute man and needs to knock in a couple of goals to stay on the side, doesn't he?
I think Mateta, if you consider he's a 90-minute man, and he's definitely now on penalties as well. I think does edge João Pedro, but João Pedro's a hard sell away to West Ham, and given his ownership, I mean, he was over like 50% owned last week, wasn't he? So he's going to be a tough one. If you do want your own recommended transfers given to you by our Hub AI every single week, you can join Fantasy Football Hub via the top link below. A quick look at my team as we head into game week 2. I've got a low game week rating, but it's probably because I haven't got players like Salah and Haaland and all that. But I've got Sanchez and Sells. I'm probably going to play Sanchez in goal, I think, away at West Ham rather than play Sells away to Palace. I think that Palace will probably score, even though they are without Eze. I still think they're an excellent team. Sanchez, they look good at the back, Chelsea, so I'm happy with that. I've got Aït-Nouri, who I'll be playing. I was really impressed with him last week, just as an overall performance. Obviously, being new in my team, playing for Man City, I watched him very, very closely. He hit DEFCON as well, comfortably, and he looked an excellent signing. So I'm really happy to play Aït-Nouri this week. I have got a bit of a dilemma then, though, because I've got Milenkovic away to Palace, so I'm probably going to play, I think, even though, I think Palace might score. But then I've got De Kuyper away to Everton. Now, Everton looked toothless in attack, but Brighton are away. And I then got Pedro Porro and Romero. So I'm a bit torn on... I'm definitely playing Aït-Nouri, and I'm a bit torn. 2 out of 3 out of Milenkovic, De Kuyper, and Porro. What would your thoughts there be, mate, out of who to play?
Yeah, I'd probably play Porro. Well, based on what you were saying to me, I'd play Porro over De Kuyper.
Over De Kuyper. Okay. I think
that's an easier one. Easier one than I've got with Esteve because of the away game. They've both got an away game, so I'd put Porro in for the attacking upside, and also your own personal enjoyment if he gets on the end of something.
Exactly that.
I think your team looks good. I mean, because you've got the spread, you may get the keepers wrong. They've both got away games, but I think the Forest guys will have a busy afternoon at Palace.
I think so.
I think they're unlikely to keep a clean sheet, but I think they are likely to get DEFCON. So that's why I'm playing Murillo, because I think he'll get a floor of 4 points or 2 or 3 or 4 points. So yeah, I think the team looks good, mate. I think you're going to beat me again with this team, but versus mine. But I think you're gonna get fed up with your structure quite quickly if you don't wildcard or free hit.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely gonna. Well, next week I'm either gonna free hit or I'm gonna play it out. But again, looking at my team for next week, it's very, very strong. But I can get Cunha in, for example, with one move. So I've made a transfer in this team. It's not showing on my team yet because it waits after the deadline. But I've done Verts to Semenyo, which is released 1.5 million, which means that next week, when Liverpool play Arsenal, I can do Gakpo straight to Cunha next week, and I can still have Ekitike as my sort of Liverpool cover, and I can go in on Cunha. And again, all these players, or most of them, will be playing at home as well. Spurs are home to Bournemouth, for example, which was a nice fixture there. And then I'm very probably going to wildcard, I think, in game week 4, because I think I'll have ridden my luck. But Salah's going to run into I don't know. I haven't got a premium price point with Salah and Haaland. The way the fixtures run, I think Salah's got Burnley and Everton in game week 4 and 5, and then you switch to Haaland, right? Haaland from game week 6 goes on a huge run of fixtures. So I think,
which is why partly why free hit 6 is a popular strategy.
Yeah. So I think I'm probably going to wildcard in game week 4, get that premium price point in Salah, and then move on to Haaland in game week 6, and just let my season sort of settle down then, at least until game week 16 when we have AFCON, and just play it out then. So that's my
looking good,
thoughts.
mate. It's looking good.
I'm not sure whether to play Kudus, but I'm not sure who. I think he could have some joy against City, but I'm not sure who I would play him ahead of in that front 7. I think it's really tough, so probably not going to play him as it stands. But what I don't want is, West Ham to go and beat Chelsea on a Friday night, and my triple Chelsea is already done and dusted. That would be annoying. So just something to think about.
Tight between Pedro and Kudus for that.
I think so. That's a dilemma I've got. But I'm on Pedro at the moment, and my recommended transfer is the same as yours, Rich. João Pedro to Mateta. Again, very, very sensible given where we are. If you do want to get your recommended transfers for your own team delivered by AI every single week, fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, top link below for 50% off. And that is it for us for this retweet. Normally we try and squeeze into an hour, but with the way the season started, with chips every week, free hits, wildcards, all this chat, we may find ourselves overrunning for a few weeks yet.
Well, we had to. We don't often get. We had to have extra 20 minutes for the enthusiasm for your bench boost, mate, didn't we? Really?
We did. We did. That's the third giant Rich you've given in this. Absolutely deserved.
Thank God you've got it out of the way.
Absolutely milking it, mate. Yeah, indeed. Rich, thank you so much as usual. Firstly, thanks to Scott, the producer, has been working wonders. Hopefully everyone can see the improvement in our tech, in everything. And Scott is doing an absolutely marvelous job behind the scenes. So thank you so much to Scott, the producer. Rich, thank you so much as usual. Where can people find you?
On at Rich Clarke FPL on X and Blue Sky.
And I'm the same, at FFH_Fergi. So this podcast and video will be in the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel, with the podcast version available on all major podcast platforms. If you like what you watched, please press the like button. If you haven't already, I can't believe you haven't already. Press the like button, please, in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. And if you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. 5 stars. We would really appreciate it. And if you want to do us an extra favor, go on to Trustpilot, Fantasy Football Hub, drop us 5 stars on there as well. We will be back next week, looking ahead to game week 3. Who knows what chips are going to be used next week, Rich? We have no idea. But in the meantime, have a fantastic game week 2, and may all your arrows be green. Good night, all.